You know, there's a lot of ways of doing a job. You could ask 10 different arborists how they would do this, and you'll get 10 different answers. You know, a crane is an obvious choice, but unfortunately there wasn't room to get a crane in here. Possibly winch it back to another tree, but you know, there wasn't anything really in a good position. So I decided to do something a little bit different. You've probably seen me do this a few times in some of my videos. It's where I build a support. Sometimes it's an A-frame, sometimes it's a little bit more individual direct support. But it's got to be done in a way that is actually going to be effective. So let me tell you the situation here. This tree fell down and landed on the roof. I'm pointing at some spots where we can tie in so we can be safe to work there. But I went and got a bunch of timbers, and we decided to build a structure at the base of the tree that would not only support it while we worked, but would be able to wedge it up. So getting the cut right is a bit of a challenge. You've got to make an angle, and I also put a little V cut in there so to kind of groove and capture the trunk and not slip from side to side. So you've got to, ideally you want it to be completely perpendicular to the trunk, but I didn't have a spot where I could do that. So it was in kind of an awkward position where it would actually push the prop over. That's a big 4x8 prop that I've got. So you can see where I was beating on it with a big sledgehammer, and that took a lot of the pressure off of the whole tree. It's not a huge tree, but it's an awkward situation, and there's some stuff that we could damage. So when you have a support like this that is not absolutely perpendicular to the trunk, you got to make sure that you've got it nailed in really solid. So I went and bought some big spikes. I've got some 12-inch spikes and some 10-inch spikes. And they're a pain in the ass to put them in there, but if you don't get them really solidly affixed, then that support can slide. So we got an air conditioning unit here we've got to work around, and you know, a lot of plants that they don't want to destroy, a couple of windows, and the job went pretty well. You know, it was smooth. You can see me here doing the lowering as well as managing the camera with one hand, so it wasn't super heavy stuff, just awkward. There was a couple of stubbed off pieces that were there that he got out of the way first, and Jorge hasn't even gotten up onto the roof yet. So as you can see, he's tied into a tree behind him for support, and that's his safety. But the tree itself is entirely being supported by that 4x8 that's wedged in there. And by the way, we also put a couple of side supports on that 4x8 in sort of an A-frame manner to keep it from rocking back and forth, and the whole thing is set onto a platform, a 4x6 piece of timber that's on the ground. Now he can't see what he's doing here, so I'm directing him, telling him where to toss the stuff. It's such a tight little community here. 3 houses shared the same exit driveway, and believe it or not, these homes in Los Gatos, these little crackerjack, ticky-tacky little houses are selling for $1.6 million. It blows my mind. There's hardly any backyard. There's hardly any space. There isn't even
really
parking on the
up
street.
there, huh?
And in this case, these 3 houses here, they all share the same exit driveway, which is just completely and totally absurd. I don't understand this whole situation here.
Clip.
It was a potentially rainy day. We got lucky it didn't rain on us, but we were concerned about that. That would have made the slippery roof even slipperier. Jorge did an excellent job up there. I want you to take note of the base of the tree. It cracked and fell over, and further on you'll see the other side is totally rotten. And this is directly result of the contractors excavating and doing all their damage to put these homes in here. Apparently these homes were built in 2005, so they're 13 years old. And all the trees in the complex are new, except for some of the ones on the,
How's it feel?
the
Is it putting a
periphery,
lot of
which
pressure
were
on the roof?
The wild trees, like this live oak here. But the contractors were pretty indiscriminate about
not much
tree root protection and where they excavated.
When you move it, it
So
looks like it's bending.
the pressure
at
that we were able to
support.
put on the tree with this 4x8
at the base,
actually
it's just
lifted it up.
Right at the support.
But I was concerned about the base of the tree breaking free, because at some point in time we got to cut this thing clear of the roof, and Jorge weighs over 200 pounds, and I didn't know if that was going to be the kind of the teeter-totter effect that was going to lift that stump up out of the ground. So we also had another tree that this thing was laying on. It wasn't a big tree, but they wanted to save it. You can see some of that foliage in there is from the tree that this tree that's on the roof has impacted and bent over. It didn't break it, but it was bent over pretty solidly.
Wiggle it one more time.
And it was helping
really
to support it. That's probably what saved the roof. Yeah, I had him looking at the roof up there. We couldn't find any holes, but regardless of what we see, we have to recommend to the client that they get a roof inspection.
Save that tree.
Because I certainly don't want the liability of telling them that the tree doesn't, or the roof won't leak, and then have a leak erupt someplace where you can't see it. So that's very important that you get someone else to get in there. And I even opted to leave all the sawdust on the roof. You know, I usually blow everything off, but you know, I thought, you know, I want a professional to get up there and see exactly where this all happened so that they can really look at it closely. So, I mean, it would have taken me just a couple minutes to blow that whole thing really, really clean. But then the roofing guy, they wouldn't know exactly where to look, you know, but by leaving some of the sawdust up there, I think that was a smart move. I don't know, what can I say? So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty part of it, where he's got to make these last final cuts. Most of his weight is taken off by his rope, so there's not a whole lot of pressure, and him bouncing actually lifts off the roof. But you can see that trunk there. You can see all the way through, and I didn't really know how stable it was. I was a bit surprised when I found out at the very end that it wasn't stable at all. There was virtually nothing holding it.
Just one careful cut.
So here we go to the delicate cuts. Jorge asked for a rope, and we decided to rope it down because there was an air conditioning unit down below where we were working. That was a smart move. Yeah, I thought maybe he might be able to undercut it, pull it all the way up, and drop his saw, and then grab hold of it and pull it up. But you can see the angle of his rope there. He's pretty awkward. You know, it's not a real comfortable place to work. You know, even with your flip line on there, and you know, when you're at that kind of an angle, it's really, you know, a lot of you guys out there know what I'm talking about. It's tough to get in a comfortable position where you can work safely. So we got it all set up with a rope. I'm going to lower this little piece down. It's not heavy, but you know, still that little piece of firewood could cause a lot of damage. If it hit that air conditioning unit, that would have been, there went all my profits. So these people hire us to be the professionals to protect their property and do everything in such a way that is not reckless and is not going to potentially impact their home. This is a new home for these people, by the way. They haven't even moved in yet. The house doesn't even have any furniture. This is as soon as they buy the house, escrow closes and a tree falls on it.
My only worry,
a little bit ironic. I hope that's not an indicator of things
That'll
to
kind of
come.
be a fulcrum. So
There
be
you can
careful.
see he's totally free, and he's got his weight supported by his own rope. But we were quite worried about the possibility of that stump breaking loose and our post being the fulcrum that would cause this to be a bit of a teeter-totter. So he's constantly checking, and he's keeping his rope really tight so he doesn't have a whole lot of pressure on it. But as you get closer and closer and closer, it gets safer and safer, and you start feeling a lot better. But now we're getting to the point where we've got to separate it from that other tree. Now, it's not a big tree, but they want to keep it. So we're trying really hard not to damage that other tree and make a cut in such a way that I think this is about it right here. The undercutting, we've got it all set up. We're roping it, and that other tree is under quite a bit of pressure. And it was like that for several weeks. We didn't come in here on this job right after it happened. So this sapling, it's probably an 8-inch diameter tree or 6-inch diameter tree, was bent over for at least 2 weeks. So while there's some pressure on this tree, it's kind of bending and breaking the fibers. There, you can see it moved up. We got
Rock
it
it
free.
really good now.
What was really interesting is by the end of the day, that
here.
little tree actually stood up more and more and more.
holding
It
over
kept
here.
straightening all the way up. Didn't get completely straight.
Let's see the base.
There you can
How's the
see
base
how
holding?
weak it is, how it's
on
rocking in the
ground, but
soil.
It's holding okay. Good job, man.
All in all, this was a pretty fun job. It's challenging to do these things and figure them out. It's like backyard engineering, and you've got to take it one step at a time. Slow and steady is the best way to go. You don't want to be reckless or take anything too big, which is a mistake that a lot of guys do. They try to get it done too fast, and they want to get it down because they don't like being up there, so they'll make massive big cuts too quickly. This is kind of an interesting cut right here because we've got to separate the log from the support. So as you can see, I am supporting the whole log that he's standing on and the trunk piece, and he's working his way down to make this final cut. I've got a good wrap around the tree, so I'm holding all the weight. But it's moving quite a bit, and here's this last final little cut, and you see it pops free. That was supporting the whole weight of it. And I want you to take note how well that piece is attached to the support. I drove it in there really solidly with some big spikes. I had to really beat on it with a big sledgehammer to get that piece to come off of there when I disassembled everything, because I really wanted that to be supported well and not slip up.
Nothing holding the stump.
And end of the day, actually we got this job done
Your
in
rope is holding
about
that
4
other thing.
hours.
Careful, it's going to fall
Took
down
us
on
a
top
couple
of you.
more hours to get everything cleaned
See
up.
that?
We did have room to go trim a redwood tree and cut down another small dead tree. Room in the day anyway, time in the
My
day.
rope's holding that top piece.
Working on a steep hillside is always uncomfortable and potentially
You ready?
risky
Things
for
come down on you.
not only slipping and falling into your work, but twisting an ankle. Here we go. And it's safely on the ground.
That was pretty
We
funny.
got all this done before lunchtime.
Nothing was holding this base. It was just totally just sitting there. Good job, Jorge.
Thank you.
All right.